Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Speak Smart podcast. Today, we're diving into something that I think you'll find really fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Fun and effective ways to learn English. So we're going to be exploring a transcript from an episode of the Learn English with Sophia podcast. And let me tell you,
Okay.
she has some seriously cool ideas.
Yeah, I've listened to her podcast a few times, and it's amazing how many people think learning English has to be all about textbooks and grammar drills, like just pure rote memorization. And Sophia's approach is all about making language learning enjoyable. And honestly, I think that's the key to success.
Absolutely. It's like, who wants to dread studying?
Right.
You know? And one of the things that really struck me about Sophia's approach is this idea of immersion. She's a huge advocate for surrounding yourself with English media. Movies, music, podcasts, books, you name it.
So just like jump in.
Yeah, just immerse yourself.
I think what's really fascinating about this is that immersion taps into something really fundamental about how we learn languages. When you're constantly exposed to authentic English, your brain starts to pick up on patterns and nuances that you'd never get from a textbook alone.
Yeah, you're training your ear to hear the rhythm of the language, the natural flow of conversation.
Yeah.
And I love how Sophia talks about making it part of your lifestyle, not just another chore on your to-do list. And she even suggests like cozying up on the couch with some popcorn for movie night.
Yeah, just make it fun.
Make it fun, exactly.
Yeah, and that brings up another important point, choosing the right resources. If you're a beginner and you try to jump into Shakespeare right away, you're probably going to feel overwhelmed and discouraged.
Totally. Like trying to run a marathon before you've even learned to walk.
Yeah.
Sophia actually recommends starting with something like children's movies or comedies.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think that's brilliant because the language is usually simpler, the plots are straightforward, and there's often a lot of visual humor that can help with comprehension. So it's a gentle way to ease yourself into the world of English language media. And as you gain confidence, you can gradually challenge yourself with more complex material.
Yeah, you can level up.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we've got immersion, we've got choosing the right resources. Now let's talk about active engagement.
Yeah.
Sophia's all about actively interacting with the English materials you choose. And I think this is where things get really interesting.
Yeah, this is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
Active engagement is crucial because it takes you from passive consumption to active participation in the learning process. It's like a difference between just watching someone bake a cake and actually getting your hands dirty and making one yourself.
Ooh, I love that analogy. So for movies, Sophia suggests paying close attention to not just the dialogue, and also the actors' facial expressions and body language.
Yeah, nonverbal communication is a huge part of any language. And it's something that textbooks often miss. You know, paying attention to those subtle cues can really deepen your understanding of what's being communicated.
It's like learning a secret language within the language. And what about podcasts? Sophia has some interesting tips for those too.
Yeah, she does. One of the things she emphasizes is choosing podcasts that genuinely interest you. This keeps you engaged and motivated to listen, and it also allows you to learn vocabulary and expressions related to topics you're passionate about.
Makes total sense. Like if you're a history buff, find a podcast about history. If you love cooking, find a podcast about food.
Exactly. Find something you love.
Yeah, and she also talks about the importance of repetition. Listening to an episode multiple times to really solidify the language in your mind.
Yeah, repetition is key for any kind of learning. But it's especially important for language acquisition. Each time you hear those words and phrases again, they become a little bit more familiar, a little bit more ingrained in your memory. And eventually you'll find yourself using them naturally in your own speech.
It just becomes natural.
Yeah.
Okay, now music. Who doesn't love music? Sophia sees music as a fantastic tool for learning English. And I completely agree.
Yeah, music is great. It engages different parts of our brain. And it has a way of making learning feel less like work and more like play.
Right. She recommends really listening to the lyrics, trying to understand the meaning behind the words, and even singing along.
Oh yeah, singing along is great. It's a great way to practice pronunciation and intonation in a fun and low pressure way. Plus you get to enjoy the music. It's a win-win.
Total win-win. And let's not forget about exploring the cultural context behind the music.
Oh, that's a great point. Music is a reflection of culture. So understanding the background of the artist, the story behind the song, it all adds another layer of depth to your learning experience.
It does. Okay, and finally we come to books. Sophia talks about the importance of slowing down, taking your time, looking up unfamiliar words, and really letting yourself get lost in the story.
Yeah, reading shouldn't feel like a chore. It should be an enjoyable experience. It's about savoring the language, expanding your vocabulary, and immersing yourself in different worlds.
Absolutely. But Sophia doesn't stop at just consuming English media. She also suggests some really creative activities to supercharge your learning.
Oh yeah, this is where it gets fun.
This is where it gets really fun.
And innovative.
Yeah.
I love this.
Okay, so she's a big fan of storytelling. She encourages listeners to try writing their own short stories in English.
Put on your creative writing hat.
Yes.
Storytelling is an incredible way to practice all sorts of language skills. From grammar and vocabulary to creativity and expression. And you don't have to be a professional writer to do it.
You don't at all.
Yeah.
She also suggests practicing storytelling with a partner, taking turns, sharing stories, or even creating them together.
That's cool.
Right.
It's like a fun little language exchange
Right.
where you can support each other and build confidence in a safe environment. And for those who are more tech savvy, she recommends exploring digital storytelling tools and apps.
Yeah, there's so many cool platforms out there where you can create multimedia stories with images, audio, and video.
Yeah, it's like bringing your stories to life.
Really is.
Yeah.
Okay, now another one of Sophia's suggestions is role-playing, which is a fantastic way to practice conversational skills in a controlled environment.
Yeah, it's like a dress rehearsal for real life situations.
Exactly.
Okay.
Sophia suggests picking scenarios like ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions, or even going through a job interview.
And then you can take on different roles and act out the scene with a partner. To make it even more realistic, Sophia suggests using props and visual aids.
Oh, that's a good idea. So if you're practicing ordering food, you could actually use a menu.
Exactly. It helps you get into character and really immerse yourself in the scenario.
It does. Okay, we've got storytelling, we've got role-playing. Now let's get a little bit artistic. Sophia believes that drawing and doodling can be surprisingly effective tools for reinforcing vocabulary and concepts.
You know, it might sound unconventional, but there's a lot of research to support the idea that visual learning can really enhance language acquisition. When you create a visual representation of a word or concept, it helps to solidify it in your memory.
Makes sense. Sophia suggests creating vocabulary flashcards with drawings or doodles instead of just writing the words.
Yeah, and I love her suggestion of sketching scenes or characters from stories or movies. It's such a creative way to practice vocabulary and let your imagination run wild.
It is. It is. And of course, no discussion of learning English would be complete without mentioning the incredible resources available through digital media. Sophia is all about embracing the digital world to boost your English skills.
Yeah, the digital world is amazing. There's a whole universe of online resources out there. Language learning apps, games, online forums, you name it. Sophia is a big advocate for starting a blog or a vlog in English.
I think that's such a great idea. It's a fantastic way to practice your writing or speaking skills regularly. Share your thoughts and experiences, and connect with other English learners or native speakers from around the world.
It's all about putting yourself out there and using the language in a real-world context, even if it's just online.
Even if just online. She also recommends participating in online forums, discussion groups, or social media platforms where you can interact with native English speakers and fellow learners.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It's a fantastic way to build confidence and fluency by actually engaging in conversations and sharing ideas.
I like just doing it.
By doing it.
Yeah. Wow, we've covered so much ground already. Sophia has given us a treasure trove of ideas.
She has. She really has.
It's really inspiring to see her passion for language learning and her commitment to making it accessible and enjoyable for everyone.
She seems like a really great teacher.
She does. She really does.
Very passionate.
Yeah. It's a great reminder that learning English doesn't have to be a chore. There are so many creative and engaging ways to approach it.
It's supposed to be fun.
It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The most important thing is to find what works best for you, what sparks your interest, and what keeps you motivated.
And there are so many options. It's about making learning English a personal and enjoyable journey. And with so many resources and approaches available, there's no limit to what you can achieve.
Absolutely.
So are you ready to put some of Sophia's tips into action?
I am.
I know I am. In our next segment, we'll delve deeper into specific strategies for choosing the right movies, podcasts, music, and books for your English level. And we'll unpack those active engagement techniques in even more detail. Stay tuned because things are about to get really practical.
I'm excited.
Me too.
Welcome back to the Speak Smart podcast. We just finished talking about a whole bunch of creative ways to learn English, all inspired by Sophia from the Learn English with Sophia podcast.
Yeah, she had so many cool ideas.
Yep.
And now it's time to get down to the nitty-gritty. We're going to talk about how to actually choose the right movies, podcasts, music, and books that match your current English level. Yeah. So you can start using these techniques right away.
That's right, because one of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to jump into material that's too advanced too soon. You want to find that sweet spot where it's challenging enough to keep you engaged, but not so difficult that it becomes frustrating.
Right, like you want to be stretched,
Yeah.
but not overwhelmed.
Exactly.
So where should someone who's just starting out with English begin?
Movies are a great place to start. Specifically, I'd recommend animated films, especially those from studios like Pixar, Disney, or Studio Ghibli.
Okay.
The animation provides a lot of visual context, which helps with understanding. And the voice acting is typically very clear and easy to follow.
Makes sense. The visuals really help to tell the story, even if you don't catch every word.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the stories themselves tend to be universal and engaging. They're designed to appeal to audiences of all ages and backgrounds.
They are. They're just really good stories. What about something a little more live action? Any recommendations there?
Comedies are another excellent option for beginners. Romantic comedies, slapstick humor. These genres often rely on visual gags and simpler dialogue.
Plus, who doesn't love a good laugh? It makes the learning process so much more enjoyable.
Absolutely. Laughter is a universal language.
Yeah.
And it can really help to take the pressure off when you're learning something new.
Yeah, it just lightens the mood.
Yeah.
So we've got animated films and comedies for beginners. What about as you start to progress and feel more confident in your English skills?
As your listening comprehension improves, you can start venturing into genres like dramas, historical films, and thrillers. These films often have more complex plots and richer vocabulary.
So you can kind of level up.
Yeah, exactly.
But remember, it's important to listen to your gut. If you're feeling lost or frustrated, it's perfectly fine to step back. Right. And choose something a little simpler. There's no shame in revisiting old favorites or going back to material. You can understand. Okay, so let's move on to podcasts. There are so many podcasts out there these days, it can be hard to know where to begin. Any advice on how to choose the right podcast for learning English?
I think Sophia's advice here is golden. Choose podcasts that genuinely interest you. The more interested you are in the topic, the more engaged you'll be, and the more likely you are to stick with it.
Makes sense. So if you're passionate about history, find a podcast about history. If you love true crime, find a podcast about true crime.
Exactly. Make it something you look forward to listening to. And for beginners, I'd also recommend looking for podcasts that are specifically designed for English language learners.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
What makes those podcasts different?
They often speak at a slightly slower pace. They use clearer pronunciation, and they may even include explanations of vocabulary or grammar points along the way.
That's like having a built-in English tutor right in your earbuds.
Yeah.
Do you have any specific recommendations for English learning podcasts?
Voice of America. Learning English is a great one. They cover news and current events, but in a way that's tailored for language learners. Another one I like is 6-Minute English from the BBC. They have short, digestible episodes on a variety of interesting topics.
Okay. And as your listening skills improve, you can start exploring podcasts that are geared towards native speakers.
That's right. You'll have a whole world of podcasts to choose from, covering every imaginable topic.
You really will. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Okay, let's talk music. Music is such a powerful tool for language learning. But how do you choose the right music for your level?
Sophia suggests starting with songs that have clear lyrics and relatively simple vocabulary.
Okay, what genres would you recommend for beginners?
Pop music is a good starting point. The lyrics often focus on everyday themes and relationships, and the language is usually fairly straightforward. Plus, pop songs tend to have catchy melodies, which helps with memorization.
They do. And don't forget about the power of repetition. Listening to the same song over and over again can really help to solidify those words and phrases in your memory.
Absolutely. And as you get more comfortable, you can start branching out into other genres like folk country or even rock and roll.
So many options.
Yeah.
What about ballads? They can be pretty challenging for language learners, right?
They can be, but they can also be incredibly rewarding. Ballads often tell stories and use vivid imagery, which can really help you to understand how language is used to evoke emotions.
So it's not just about understanding the individual words, but also about grasping the overall feeling that the song is trying to convey.
Right, it's about the feeling.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of techniques you can use to make listening to ballads even more beneficial for language learning.
But like what?
One thing I always recommend is looking up the lyrics online. and reading along as you listen. This helps you to connect the spoken word with the written form. And you might discover new vocabulary or idioms that you wouldn't have noticed otherwise.
It's like a little treasure hunt.
Yeah.
I also think it's helpful to really pay attention to how the singer is pronouncing the words, their intonation, their rhythm. It's almost like a mini pronunciation lesson.
It is.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to sing along. Even if you don't have the best singing voice, singing along to your favorite songs is a fantastic way to practice your pronunciation and intonation in a fun and relaxed way.
Yeah, just let loose.
Yeah, have fun with it.
Okay, now let's talk about books. We all know that reading is essential for language learning. But how do you choose the right book for your level?
Sophia really emphasizes the importance of starting with books that match your reading level and, of course, your interests. If you start with a book that's too difficult, you're likely to get discouraged and give up.
Yeah, you don't want to set yourself up for failure.
Right.
So where should someone who's just starting out begin their reading journey?
Children's books are a fantastic option for beginners. The language is simple, the stories are engaging, and there are often illustrations to help with comprehension.
That makes a lot of sense. It's a gentle and enjoyable way to ease into reading in English.
It is.
Yeah.
Another great option is graded readers. These are books that have been specifically written for English language learners with vocabulary and grammar structures adapted to different proficiency levels.
Okay.
You can find graded readers on a wide variety of topics, so you're sure to find something that interests you.
That sounds really helpful.
Yeah.
So as your reading skills improve, what kind of books can you start exploring?
Once you've mastered children's books and graded readers, you can move on to young adult fiction short stories, and eventually even novels and nonfiction works that pique your interest.
It's like a whole world of literature is opening up to you.
It is.
Yeah.
And as you progress, don't be afraid to use tools like dictionaries and online resources to look up unfamiliar words. It's all part of the learning process.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Sophia also talks about taking your time with a book, savoring the language,
Yeah.
and allowing yourself to get lost in the story.
Absolutely. Reading shouldn't feel like a race. It's about enjoying the journey. It's about immersing yourself in a different world and experiencing the beauty of the English language.
That's beautifully said. So we've covered a lot of ground today, talking about how to choose the right movies, podcasts, music, and books for your English level. And now in our next segment, we're going to dive even deeper into some active engagement strategies that can take your learning to the next level. Welcome back to the Speak Smart podcast. We've been on quite a journey exploring all sorts of fun and effective ways to learn English, inspired by Sophia's amazing insights from the Learn English with Sophia podcast.
I know, it's been a really fun deep dive.
It has. We've talked about the power of immersion, the importance of choosing the right resources, and now it's time to get even more practical with some specific strategies to really maximize your learning with movies, podcasts, music, and books.
Yeah, let's get down to brass tacks.
I'm excited to dive into these techniques. So let's start with movies. We've already discussed choosing films that match your level, but what are some ways to actively engage with a movie to boost your English skills?
One technique that I find really helpful is called active viewing. It's all about being present and engaged with the film, not just passively watching it.
Okay, that sounds intriguing.
Yeah.
How do you actually practice active viewing?
Well, before you even press play, set an intention for what you want to get out of the experience. Maybe you want to focus on specific vocabulary related to the film's theme. Maybe you're interested in understanding different accents. Or maybe you simply want to pay attention to how native speakers use idioms and slang in natural conversation.
Like giving your brain a mission.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then as you're watching the movie, really pay attention to not just the dialogue, but also the nonverbal cues, the actors' facial expressions, their body language, their tone of voice.
Right. All of those things that add so much depth and nuance to the spoken words. It's like a whole other layer of communication.
It really is. And don't hesitate to pause the movie rewind sections and replay parts that you find particularly interesting or challenging. Remember, you're in control of your learning experience.
Yes, you are the captain of your ship.
You are.
Okay. And what about subtitles? Are those helpful or harmful for language learning?
Subtitles can be a fantastic tool, especially in the beginning. They help you connect the spoken word with the written form. But as your listening comprehension improves, try watching for stretches without subtitles. It's a great way to challenge yourself and really test your listening skills.
Let's rip off that Band-Aid.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to podcasts. We've talked about the importance of choosing podcasts that you enjoy, but what are some active listening techniques that can help you get the most out of them?
One of the most effective techniques is called shadowing. It involves listening to a short segment of the podcast and then trying to repeat it verbatim, mimicking the speaker's pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm.
Like you're trying to become the speaker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's incredibly beneficial for improving pronunciation fluency and even your understanding of connected speech, how words flow together in natural conversation.
That sounds like a fun challenge.
It is.
Yeah.
And another helpful technique is to take notes while you listen. Jot down key vocabulary words, interesting phrases, or even questions that come up for you.
Yeah, just to kind of stay engaged and create your own little study guide.
Exactly. And speaking of reviewing, don't underestimate the power of revisiting podcast episodes. Even just listening to a favorite episode a second or third time can reinforce the vocabulary and help those new phrases sink in even deeper.
It's like giving your brain that extra repetition.
Yeah, repetition is key.
Repetition is key.
Okay.
So let's talk about music. We all love listening to music, but how can we turn that enjoyment into a language learning opportunity?
One fun and engaging strategy is to create a lyric notebook. Choose songs you love, print out the lyrics, and as you listen, highlight words or phrases you don't understand. Then look up the definitions and write them down right there on the page.
It's like your own personalized musical dictionary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic way to expand your vocabulary organically. Another idea is to focus on specific aspects of pronunciation while you're listening to music. Pay attention to how singers pronounce vowel sounds, how they stress certain syllables, and how they connect words together.
Yeah, it's like a little pronunciation lesson.
It is.
From your favorite artists.
And of course, don't forget to sing along. It's one of the best ways to practice pronunciation and intonation in a fun and uninhibited way. Plus, it just feels good to sing.
It does. Now let's talk about books. We've already covered the importance of choosing books that are both interesting and appropriate for your reading level. But how can we elevate reading from passive consumption to active engagement?
There's a technique called active reading that can really transform your reading experience. It's all about slowing down, savoring the language, and interacting with the text.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What does active reading look like in practice?
As you're reading, highlight unfamiliar words or phrases. Then take the time to look them up and write down the definitions in your own words. This not only helps with comprehension, but it also aids in retention.
You're building your own personal glossary.
Exactly.
As you go.
And don't just focus on vocabulary. Pay attention to the grammar structures, the sentence patterns, the way the author uses language to create a mood or convey an emotion.
Yeah, it's like a writing lesson.
It is.
From the author.
And don't be afraid to annotate the text. Write down your thoughts, your questions, your reactions, or even connections to your own life experiences.
Yeah, make it a conversation.
You make it a conversation.
You're not just reading the words, you're actively engaging with the author's ideas.
That's where the real magic happens.
That is where the magic happens.
And if you want to take it even further, join a book club or find a reading buddy. Discussing a book with others can help you solidify your understanding and practice your speaking skills.
That's a great idea. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today. From choosing the right resources to active engagement strategies, we've explored a whole world of fun and effective ways to learn English.
We have, and it's all thanks to Sophia.
It is. It is. What's the key takeaway you want listeners to walk away with today?
I think the most important thing is to make learning English a joyful and personalized journey. Experiment with different approaches. Find what resonates with you, and don't be afraid to get creative. There's no right or wrong way to learn a language. As long as you're enjoying the process and making progress.
I love that it's all about finding what works for you and making it your own. And remember, the world is full of resources and opportunities to learn English. It's all about taking that first step and diving in.
That's right. Just go for it.
Just go for it.
Yeah, and never give up. The journey of language learning is a marathon, not a sprint. Embrace the challenges, celebrate the victories, and most importantly, have fun along the way.
Yes, have fun. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of English language learning. We hope you feel inspired and equipped to take your skills to the next level.
We do.
And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out our other deep dives, where we explore a wide range of fascinating topics. Until next time, keep speaking smart and keep those learning adventures going.
Keep learning.
Thank you for listening to the Speak Smart podcast.